Hello, Briat, once again.
Ryan, how's it? How'd it go?
Very good. Very good. Nice to see you. Today, the topic that we had decided on was reincarnation, which I think is really quite a leap for a lot of people, and something that you probably know a lot about. So, just to start right at the top is that I do believe in reincarnation. I do believe life is infinite and eternal, and that this life that I'm living is not an endpoint. I don't know what happens afterwards. I don't know where I go. I don't know, but I just don't believe that life just ends and that's it. So that's my personal belief,
Mm-hmm.
and that resonates with me. What would you, for somebody that's just exploring the idea of reincarnation, where would you start, and what would be the main points for you?
Okay. Um, I would like to first start by quoting one of the main spiritual inspirations for me from the Bhagavad Gita,
Mm-hmm.
that anybody who's embarking on a spiritual path, no doubt, will come across this idea that the soul is eternal and infinite. And eternal meaning it doesn't have
Okay.
an end. So then in this regard, the Bhagavad Gita says, Dehino sminyata dehe kamaram yovanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhirastatra namuyati. That the embodied soul, as the embodied soul changes within this body from boyhood to youth to old age, similarly, the soul enters into another body at the time of death, and that a sober person is not bewildered by such a change. So the idea is that there's a continuum, and that the body is simply like a garment that one wears, or it can even be, it's compared to a vehicle. The word uses yantra, it means machine. That the body
Okay.
is a machine and the soul is just a driver. So now in our experience and our we rely a lot on empiric science. So we want to see some hard evidence. And there is actually a lot of evidence supporting this idea of the transmigration of the soul, meaning after death, then you can enter into another type of life in another body. And particularly of note is a doctor called Dr. Ian Stevenson. For those who are interested, Ian Stevenson is I-A-N, Stevenson. And he's passed away already. And he studied a lot of quite extraordinary cases. He did studies for past life remembrances. He did studies for
Yes.
there was past life regression. I don't think he performed them himself. And then also quite extraordinary cases. Just one moment, this door flung open and there's a lot of sound coming in. Everybody's crying today since the sun's come up. It's been one of those days.
As it does.
Yeah, it is. So this Dr. Ian Stevenson, he studied about 3,000 cases, like in his 50 years of research, and he performed his studies very meticulously. He really followed the scientific procedure very well, and
Yes.
as far as I know, I don't really know much of his life before he started the study. But what I've heard was that initially he was actually not a subscriber to this idea of reincarnation, and that he set out to actually disprove it. But in the course of events, he actually found evidence which proved himself to change his mind.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
But don't quote me on this. Because I didn't have the time to fact check that. So you can check that out yourself, and you can even let me know if I'm wrong. But the fact is, he did do a lot of really cool studies, and he showed that a lot of studies. He even published a book, I think, with about 200 case studies where there was children who remembered events of their past lives, and that these events were all verifiable, and also that there was no way that child could have known that information.
Yes.
And even, for example, there was no close proximity between that child and the place where those events happened in that person's claimed prior life. And also,
Yes.
the evidence that they had was where they were able to verify it. They had medical records in many cases. Even they had corresponding birthmarks. For example, one person that was in a previous life, he was killed by a shotgun. He opened his door and there was a guy there with a shotgun shotgun, and he blasted him and he killed him like that. And this person took birth again, and he remembered that event, and he even pointed it out, the child. And he had birthmarks, and the wounds, the birthmarks corresponded to the shotgun pellets of the autopsy report
Wow.
of that person. So there's many such events where, especially birthmarks is one thing, it seems, like a person gets shot somewhere, and then they recall certain events that happened. It's even happened that one girl went and pointed where she's buried and where the murder weapon was buried. And she said, I was killed by
Wow.
this person, and this person did it, and this is where the murder weapon is, and this is where my body's buried. And then they actually found,
Yes.
and it was this is actually quite a famous one. I don't know if Dr. Ian Stevenson studied this particular one, but you can look on
Right.
YouTube. There's many of these.
I've seen that one.
Yeah.
I've seen that. Yeah.
Or even a boy that remembered in his past life being shot down by Japanese. He was an airplane, he was a pilot, and he was shot down.
Yes.
And then, so there's many such cases that one can look into, and I think they're very conclusive.
Okay. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So on the did you want to keep going down that vein, or do you have some personal beliefs that you want to explore, or where would you go to from here in regards to exploring reincarnation?
Okay. I think it's a very powerful paradigm shift, because it accepting this notion that life is eternal, and as a soul, apart from
Yes.
temporary life that we have here in this physical kind of form, it has a fundamental change in the way that you relate to reality, because now everything that you're doing, it's not just about the here and now, it's not just about even the next 5 or 10 or 50 years until you die. There's actually this notion that whatever you're doing here is going to affect what your next destination will be. And now, which now brings up a whole lot of other questions. What type of destinations are there that one could attain, and how do I get there? And if I do what I'm doing now, what will my destination be then? So these are natural questions which arise, and they're important questions.
Okay.
And it also helps one to appreciate a little bit more the vastness of this material cosmos and how small we are inside of it.
Yeah, it gives a lot more meaning to this life is just not about this life.
Yes.
It's part of a continued journey, and there is importance to what it is that is current for you. The things that you're learning right now are the things that you're supposed to be learning right now in your journey, and you are exactly where you need to be.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's powerful.
Okay.
You're not an accident. In fact, you're a miracle in a sense. You're a miracle. The fact that you exist, that's a miracle.
Well, reincarnation is a miracle.
Yeah.
Oh, what the? There we are. I just lost you for a second. I don't know why.
All right. I've been here.
It turned off a second. Yeah, once you're talking about a miracle, I don't think it's a miracle in a sense. I think it is a miracle. Reincarnation is a miracle. It's, if you believe in that, and if you think that that's true, then that's definitely an example of a miracle.
Yeah.
And that, just to reiterate about miracles is that, I do believe in miracles, and I don't have to look very far, other than, this planet. But, a really, really easy one and simple one is there's a fireball over there that, we float around that is always, gazillion degrees, and that it lasts for a really, really long time, and life comes from it. So I don't have to look very far that, there's this continual fireball just over there that is, constantly, part of our experience. And we so take it for granted, and we think we understand what it is, but we don't. And so I don't have to look very far for there to be a miracle. Okay. So you were saying something about there are some destinations that you can achieve or go to or something like that. Enlighten me. I don't really have much information about that.
Even within this planet, there's various destinations that one could attain of various degrees or qualities of life. There's millions of different species of life that one could inhabit, and all these different bodies, they facilitate one to be able to realize certain desires to certain degrees. For example, if you spend your life sleeping a lot, then you're essentially cultivating that desire. That's your meditation. It's like, I want to sleep, sleep, sleep. So this human body is not really that well equipped to sleep for long periods of time. When I was 18, 19 years old, I was suffering from severe acute depression and anxiety and sleep disorders and whatnot, and heavily medicated. And the longest I was able to sleep in one stretch was 30 hours, which was quite something.
Wow.
Yeah, a whole day did not happen. So,
wow.
but now if this is your desire, you're cultivating your desire by the things that you do. Your actions, they're cultivating certain desires. And cultivate means, you're brewing them, you're growing them, you're feeding them, they become stronger. So then in your next life, if you want to sleep, why don't you just get the body of a bear? And then the bear is actually very expert at sleeping. He can sleep 4, 5, 6 months at a time. He eats a lot, then he hibernates for 6 months. So then you can realize this desire for sleeping much better in the body of a bear. It's quite limited in the body of a human being. Similarly, if you want to you surf a lot, your whole life is surfing or scuba diving or something like that, then better to have a body of a fish or some aquatic, because that body is more suitable for realizing your desire for swimming.
Okay.
But the human form of life is particularly potent for realizing one's eternal spiritual identity, which this opportunity is not really there in the animal species of life, animals and trees and plant life, animal life, aquatics. The human form of life is particularly meant to realizing one's spiritual identity, because there's a specific type of intelligence which is inferred to us, which helps us to inquire into our very existence. So you don't
self-reflection.
Yes. So I think in that sense, there are different destinations that you can attain. Even beyond this planet, there's also, but I won't get into that too much because that might be quite far out for many people. But at least one can understand in this planet itself, there's so many different options available in terms of bodies that you can inhabit like that. Sure. So you get what you desire. According to what you do in this life, that's the choice you're making.
My personal belief in, I love the contrast that we have different beliefs, and I think there's room to have, different beliefs in life. I personally think that if you're a human being, that you reincarnate into human being again, and that not necessarily into other species. I don't know that for sure, but that's my belief. I find it interesting that you have beliefs other than that. In the room for everybody's beliefs, and for you to be able to feed out for yourself about what's true for you, and being able to create your own beliefs from that. Okay, what else about reincarnation? Is there anything else that, how does one know, what's the use of reincarnation? Why is it important? Why would somebody even question, whether they're, reincarnated, that it's possible to be reincarnated? And anything else that you find that is impactful for you in the covering the whole topic?
The whole topic. Well, essentially, the fact that there's reincarnation, on the one hand, it gives you an opportunity to pursue so many desires that you could potentially have. Because this life is too short to pursue a lot of them, or even most of them. Because a lot of desires we have, they also conflict. So many different lives could give you those opportunities to realizing those desires. And on a grander spiritual scale, the function of that is also to bring one to the point of understanding that actually none of these desires are going to satisfy me. If I accumulate an incredible amount of knowledge, I'm still going to be left unsatisfied. If I accumulate an incredible amount of wealth, I'm still going to be unsatisfied. If I accumulate an incredible amount of power, of beauty, even if I go the opposite, if I just become completely renounced, I become like a Zen Buddhist monk or something similar, living in the forest, just wearing tree bark around my waist and eating roots and fruits, and just being completely renounced and detached, that's also not going to make me satisfied.
Minimalist.
Yes. Yep. So then we get a chance to try and pursue these different things, and then realize that they're not going to make me happy. And one can either do it yourself, or you can actually look at somebody who has attained that, and you can decide for yourself whether you think that person's happy. This person's such a genius. I'm trying to become a smarty pants. So this person's so clever. He's such a genius. Is he happy? No, he's not happy, because he still doesn't want to die. He still doesn't. There's still a lot he doesn't know. For just as an example. So then, if these many lifetimes are supposed to accumulate in realization that these things are limited, they can't give me the satisfaction I desire, and therefore, what will give me that satisfaction? And these kind of things pressure an individual soul to start inquiring into the nature of the true self, the spiritual reality. So these things act as a very powerful impetus, where you get to express your free will any way you want to. You also get to take the consequences of your actions. That's also part of freedom, is that you also have the freedom to accept responsibility for what you do. So that's
how you learn. Yeah.
A lot of people, they want to receive things, but everybody's talking about what are my rights, but nobody's talking about what is my duty, what is my responsibility. So my data just ran out, so there might be a problem now. We'll just try and reconnect the call.